wonderful to be here again. It is a bit of a homecoming. It's been a while since I've been here. And thank you all for sharing your presence in this sanctuary. And thank you so much, Barb, for giving me that call. And when I found out that Barb was your new minister, I just went, oh yeah. Oh, I bet you did. I bet you did. Because I know you all see the wonderful qualities in Barb that I've seen over the years. And it's nice to reconnect again. Yeah. I've been told that I need to stand over here a little further. So homecoming. And we get to have chili. Wow. Yum. All right. I get to have lunch while I'm here too. Wonderful hospitality. Homemade chili and a cook-off. Wow. But I forgot to bring the cornbread. Is there some here? All right. Then we got it all. Homecoming. It's homecoming time. Although it's kind of the end of homecoming time, isn't it? And it is a time of color, many colors. Holly, thank you for your wonderful gifts and sharing them this morning. And colors and the rainbow. And the rainbow is actually one of the ancient symbols for Sophia. Yes, for Sophia. So I have a couple of quotes that I know you have. I can't imagine that anybody here hasn't heard these quotes. They're real short ones, a whole bunch of times. But I'm going to start out with these two quotes. They're good ones. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Now, who said that? See, I'll bet you over half of you knew that. No problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it. Wow. Do we have a few problems facing us? I personally have a few. And I think there are a few global problems, communal problems that we're dealing with. So what is that other level of consciousness that we need to get into to solve the problems that we face? And I don't know about all of you, but I strongly suspect that you've been looking for that higher level of consciousness for a while. How many books do you suppose, among the bunch of us here, do we collectively own? The spiritual ones. Just spiritual ones. You know, I've been on this journey for 40 years. It's hard to believe. Now, the first time I was here, I was a lot younger. But then, those of you that were here were younger too, weren't you? Have we learned a few things since then? Yeah, we have. Have we been able to live them? And that's the challenge, isn't it? And the other quote, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Now, who knows who wrote that one?
Yes, Elliot.
Yeah, you guys are good. You guys are good. What does that mean? What does that mean? We will not cease from exploring, from exploration. How many books are you reading currently? In 40 years, I don't even want to think about the number of books I've collected, I've read, I've borrowed, and the ones that are stacked up that are still waiting to be read. How many classes, how many workshops, how many lectures, how many DVDs now, how many websites? Oh my goodness. And I'm still chasing that elusive butterfly of that higher consciousness. Now, I'd like to think that often we're kind of there, but because we're there, it doesn't seem all that much different, at least to us. But it's still that pull, that call. And where does that call come from? Why are we still on that journey of exploration? Why am I, after 40 years, still doing this stuff? Now, 2 weeks ago, I turned 68. And I'm a little slower than I used to be. The memory isn't quite what it used to be, but I'm still doing it. I'm still reading those books. I'm still checking those websites. Wow. But what is it that I'm seeking? Is it a homecoming of some kind? And, Sophia's in our title. Who is Sophia? And many of us know that she is the goddess of wisdom, the personification of wisdom. And where does she live? Well, we can say, sure, she lives in our heads, she lives in our hearts. But today we did that little meditation of going down here. Because in a real brief way, Sophia in the Gnostic myth is trapped in the material plane, in the earthly plane. And she's calling us to come find her and release her. And she is in that earthly plane. She is in matter. It is said that the 4 elements were created by Sophia. And we are being called to her, to find her, to free her. And the place that most of us are least acquainted with, the place that a lot of us are becoming more acquainted with because of issues that we have, are down here. And we've taken this little journey into the depths of our, literally, the bowels of our being. Because what is down here? Chakra-wise, what are these chakras? First and second and the third chakra. That core of our physical self, where we have all these cords, all these connections into the world. And this is where I need to be more often. I really am up here a lot. And so how are you doing with this part of your being? Are you down there? And can we continue to have this axis of knowing, of being, this axis mundi that's functioning in our body? Because as I've moved along this path, I can see that I am coming home in some interesting ways. Now, when did you first start reading books? I've been a bookworm all my life. I started reading books when I was 6 years old. I mean, other than the books in school. And those first books that I read were books about the great explorers. Remember, I grew up in the 50s, so remember Daniel Boone? Oh, what's the song of Daniel Boone? I bet you some of you. So Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. And remember Fess Parker? Oh, wow, I know, I'm showing my age here, that's okay. And so those were the books I read. But in those books, I started encountering the Native Americans that those guys, those heroes encountered. And one of my early heroes was George Armstrong Custer. But then I started finding out he really wasn't a very good guy. And you know who George Armstrong Custer was? He's famous because he got wiped out by the Sioux. He was very, very stupid, literally very stupid, and put his men in great peril, and they all paid a great price. And I started having a connection with those Native American leaders. And my heroes became Geronimo, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Tecumseh. And my grandmother had this one, in fact I have it now, this wonderful book, leather bound, and the edge of it is gold, The Song of Hiawatha. Yeah. This is the land of Hiawatha. Yeah. And those became my heroes. More than George Armstrong Custer's stupid idiot that got his men killed. And those became my heroes. Then as time moved along, I got into science fiction. So, Robert Heinlein, Andrew Norton, Theodore Sturgeon, yeah, the great ones. And I still, my older son reads those big, thick books that are out there these days. Well, too big for me. But. So there are two general flows in our movement, aren't there? There is that flow from that core of birth, that belly of the mother, into an individual being, and we struggle much of our life to become that individual being. And then there's that countering flow. It's called the strophe and the antistrophe, where we begin to come back. Only, as T.S. Eliot said, we come back different. We come back consciously. And we know home for the first time in a different way. And that's called the hero's journey. To come home different. And what we bring home is a new consciousness, a new way of perceiving, a new way of thinking, of living, of relating, of being. So that not only are we changed, but just because of our presence, those around us begin to change. How many of you have had the experience where people that you know that aren't in this community say, what is it that you're up to? Where did you go? What are you doing? Are you sure? Well, if that's what you want. But how many are coming along with us these days? I mean, looking around, there's a lot of us here that have been doing this for a while. We aren't so weird anymore. That's kind of a nice feeling, isn't it? Oh. Now if I can only get my kids to come along. We aren't so weird anymore. We're coming home in a different way. We're finding and beginning to free Sophia. The level of consciousness is beginning to change. Wow, think of what, in 40 years, what's happened? What's different? The speed of the change is kind of boggling, and yet we know we have so much more to do. Oh my, there's so much more to do. So at 68, I ain't stopping anytime soon. And neither are you. I can feel that. I can see that. So we're coming home. And this is a big part of it, that gut sensation, that feeling. Now, one of my very favorite books for for 5 or 6 years now has been the Book of Awakening. Are you familiar with the Book of Awakening by a guy named Mark Nepo? He's a cancer survivor, should have died, didn't. In fact, they still don't know why the tumor in his brain went away. The surgeries, the chemos, them unexplicably, they've gone away. And he's gone on to write many wonderful books. The Book of Awakening is a daily meditation. It's one of my favorite ones. And a few days ago, his little quote at the top was, "It is the earth that is enlightened. It is we that are intermittent." And the full circle I am experiencing is I'm coming back to that earth-based spirituality. Have any of you read the books of Martin Prechtel? Heard the name? There's a couple people. I was given those books years ago and put them on the pile. But then my partner and I, 2 weeks ago, were in Guatemala. My partner is a surgical nurse. And she's been 9 times to Guatemala to do volunteer surgery for those in need. Medical care down there is mostly available if you're wealthy. It's really hit or miss if you're not. And most, by far, people in Guatemala are anything but wealthy. In fact, the majority are Mayan Indians. Guatemala is truly a Native American country. So I started reading these books because Martín Prechtel spent 13 years in a village there called Santiago Atitlan and became a shaman. Had to leave during their horrendous civil war because his life was threatened, and he had to, in the middle of the night, leave with his wife and 2 children. And so he's now here helping many of us get down, get connected to the enlightenment that the earth brings. And I love it. He says that to the Mayans, humans are the bauble on the earlobe of creation. And our task is to bring more beauty into the world. And if you were down among those cultures, and I was, oh my goodness, the colors. This tie is from one of their fabrics. The belt. The shirt is hand-woven fabric. It's like, wow. The joy they bring, even though they're poor, and the color and the celebrations of life, they are engaged in life in ways that I have kind of forgotten about. And that speaks to me. It is the earth that is enlightened. And we are the intermittent ones. So this connection that happens is needed again. And when that happens, we are guided. That's what we've been talking about. We are guided. We are one with creation, and we are in that flow of being that is bringing all of us home. All of us home to Sophia, to a more beautiful, loving place. One of my favorite books right now is from Charles Eisenstein, and I love the title, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. So we're here to bring beauty to the world, and the gods respond in kind. You are beautiful. Beauty comes through you. Above you, below you is beautiful. All around you is beautiful. For you have been found, and all